Welcome everyone to this UK Film Review interview. I'm very happy to say that today I'm joined by Jonathan Zaurin. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me
Oh, you're
today.
welcome. Thank you for taking the time yourself.
Well, I watched Derelict, your new thriller, and I thought it was really, really good.
Thank you.
And I was engaged by it throughout and was quite tickled by some of the techniques that you use and just, generally very impressed by the level of sort of ambition to the
Oh,
project. Um, would it be okay if you perhaps introduce the film for us, just generally the story or to you what the film is about briefly?
yeah, so Derelict is based on a true crime that happened in my French hometown, which kind of traumatized me because I was so close to it in a way. I knew the person who had committed the murder. And then also it turns out that in ways that I couldn't imagine at the time, my own family was kind of linked to the case because my father was living life as a closeted homosexual, and so he was entertaining a love affair with a third brother, which in some way kind of developed to me in the 20 years that I had to think about the movie as it could have been my dad, the victim. So I started empathizing even more with the victims, and I researched the case, and so essentially, Derelict is a film about a horrendous murder that defines all the lives that it touches. I think that's the best way to summarize it. It's not. It's weird because I think it's being sold as a thriller, and I don't know if I'd call it a thriller. I
Okay,
think I'd call it a
interesting. All right.
drama. For me, it's a
Yeah.
crime drama more than. But thriller is. It's not incorrect either because it does play on the tension and the suspense.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. Yes. So it's obviously an incredibly disturbing film. You're dealing with a lot of dark subject matter, and I can imagine that from the perspective of a writer, director, you probably for a long time had to go to some pretty dark places to make this film a reality. Um, but so from minute one, I found there's this incredible use of texture in the film, and a lot of that I would say is through the use of locations. You say that uh it happened, where near to where you were living,
Mm.
in terms of picking locations and trying to evoke that very specific kind of haunted quality in the locations. Could you talk a bit about the process of selecting locations and then how you went about filming in these very evocative abandoned areas?
Absolutely. The key thing here is, and I think maybe that's what you're hinting at in your question, which I can stop me if I'm wrong. But the key thing for me is transposing something that was kind of French in nature into the English kind of landscape as well. And in a sense, I'm lucky because I moved from very poor industrial working class France to kind of poor industrial working class England. So all those locations that you see in the films, these are locations that I live by. I walk by them every day. I walk by them at night. I walk by them in winter and summer. I know them inside out. Um, and so when you kind of know a place, it becomes a lot easier to kind of film it and capture the textures of it. And I know in at least one review, we got accused of poverty porn, which is incredible for me because this is where I live.
Yeah.
So in a way, we knew we weren't going to be able to design sets. We knew we weren't going to be able to pay for studio time. So what we had to do was find places that kind of embodied those derelict lives in a way. And so all the graffiti, all the broken buildings, all of that is nearby where I live. Now, in terms of capturing them on camera, I mean that's I guess that's a wider question of what the camera does at any point in any film, isn't it? Is the sense of trying to capture a texture that I think that the texture is only it's only powerful because it relates to something that's within the psyche of the characters themselves. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so, although it might feel like I'm not answering your question completely, I think the key to what you're saying is that we try to stay true to the truth of who the characters were, including in the locations that they inhabit. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Yes. Yeah, completely. And then the location in some way reflects the
Yeah,
psyche
that's
of the
right.
character.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, I think you capture that really effectively, and I think that's definitely present throughout the film.
Okay.
And so yeah, so the film is very willing to take us to some very dark and uncomfortable places. Um, so I have a couple of questions, which is that I was wondering, I mean, the answer to this question is probably obvious, but is it in your nature as an artist to be completely okay with delving into the darkest depths of you as a storyteller?
Yeah, and I think you have to be like if you want to get to something that rings true, you can't kind of forbid yourself any area of conversation, and it might not connect with everybody. Some people might find it's too much. Some people might find it too uncomfortable. I completely get that, but I don't think there's anything we do that isn't still a part of some stratas of British culture.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the thing is, for me, that's my thing. I came from France here, and I didn't know that much about British cinema. I knew a lot about Asian cinema and French cinema and American cinema, like everybody else. But British cinema was not really a thing where I'd really dug into. And when I came to this country, I decided to immerse myself in the culture. And what struck me was that in the 60s and 70s, and of course I knew all the horror film, the Hammer films and all that stuff, but I didn't know stuff like Woodfall and Tony Richardson and all that stuff. And I discovered Shane Meadows when I came here, and so I think it struck a chord to me when all of a sudden these kind of working class voices, the depiction of British working class kind of went away from our screen
Mm,
altogether. Or if they existed on our screen, they kind of exist in a kind of sanitized, clean way. And
yeah.
for me, being working class, living in a working class neighborhood, seeing some stuff that, is sometimes dark, sometimes violent, sometimes morbid, sometimes I felt like, you know, we if we were going to delve into that, we owed to be truthful and not pretend like those things that we keep seeing are not happening because I see them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a very confrontational film in that way, I would say,
Yeah.
to its credit. So we're yet to talk about one of the most interesting aspects of the film, which is the very interesting sort of non-linear narrative, which I really enjoyed and was definitely one of my favorite aspects of the filmmaking.
Right.
You sort of use, these sort of quasi chapter headings, and then it's told in a sort of non-chronological fashion, and then you're switching perspectives back and forth between these two individuals. I was wondering why specifically you felt that this story warranted a non-linear narrative structure.
Great question. I like that question, and the answer is fairly simple. Is it's a film about empathy, and chronologically, the center set piece actually happens first before anything else. But my thing with that was that I thought that if it did happen first, then any form of empathy towards Matt or even Ewan in that respect, who is the hardest character to love in the in
Mm,
the film, would be absolutely impossible.
mm,
Once you've seen what they've done, there is zero way that you can even consider having empathy for them. Whereas if you get to know at least Matt, maybe not Ewan, but if you get
yeah,
to know
yeah.
them first, or you get to empathize with Abby because she is clearly a victim. She is clearly, traumatized by what happened. But you get to know Matt before what happened. then it would become a kind of reflection of what I had to process when I heard about the case myself, which was, oh, hang on a minute, this kid I knew who was a great kid, who was the kind of kid who'd step in front of a bully, has just done this horrible thing. How do I process this?
Yeah.
You know, and
I think
I thought that's what the structure needed to reflect, and also simply, the thing about chapters and is that it allows you to work elliptically. Like for example, I would guess and I would assume, since you like the film, that you got a lot of information from what was in between the chapters.
mm.
Like you guess that they were arrested, you guess that Abigail didn't deal with it, you guess that she fell out with the rest of her family, etc. And adopting that kind of elliptical structure, it allowed me to kind of go into the core of the subject without having to rely on too much exposition. I
Absolutely.
think that's what it
Yeah.
did for us.
Yeah. And I really like what you say about empathy, because you're right, when you're switching back and forth between perspectives, I mean I found myself completely empathizing with Matt, particularly on a level of that he is in some ways a result of circumstance and his surroundings, and but going back and forth between Abby and him, you're yeah, absolutely engaged with both characters. So I think that's a real achievement in terms of the empathy you were talking about.
And so by the time you get to the end, you're not sure what you want, right? That's
Yeah,
the key.
absolutely. I mean,
Okay, what do I want? You know, trying to keep it spoiler free, but I think by the end, there could be that impression that we take the choice away from her in a sense, but I don't think we do, because essentially the whole film is based around that idea that it's the choices that define who they are at any given point. And so whether or not you take that ultimate thing away from her, she still has to make the choice to move on. I
hmm,
think that's the key. So the choice of whether killing or not killing, it's almost irrelevant. Like she doesn't, we don't, it's
yeah,
that thing of screenwriting where what your characters think they want and what they actually need are two different things.
yeah.
Um, and we do it quite radically. We knew we were going to upset some people with that ending, but
That's interesting. I well, but the ending is also so cathartic in a way that Imagine sequence is so effective and also cinematic. So I'm surprised that people were not so keen
I
on
mean, I think the thing is we also kind of reject genre in many ways.
that. Mm,
Look, we knew the rules. We knew you have to show the monster, for example. You make something I mean, and it's a rule of horror film is at some point you need to show your monster, and we do that. It's just maybe not the monster that people expected to see. It's
yes,
very hard to
yeah,
discuss without spoiling. But I still think we do show the monster and we do provide the catharsis. Is just not exactly what was imagined, I
definitely.
guess.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So one very clever technique you use to sort of evoke the different the different times and sort of place the audience in whatever perspective the character is in is through this changing of black and white to color and back and forth. I was just wondering, on a practical level, did this mean that you had to light scenes differently depending on whether you knew you were going to be shooting in black and white or in color?
Uh, that's a great question. I love this because you're right. It's all right. So there's two things. The first is uh, that I forgot to mention it. So that's important. But the other reason to do the chapter and out of chronological order was because we knew how and where we were going to use black and white, and we were seeking to create confusion. So I don't know how you live the story, but essentially, if you're not paying too much attention to the opening credits, you might start thinking that actually Abigail's story in the first part is in the past, and then it gets clarified as the film moves on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right. You light differently for black and white and for color. The whole idea of lighting for black and white is you want to light for high contrast. And the way we did that was we knew we always wanted one light source and for it to be backlit. Essentially, kind of, you know, evoking the kind of film noir feel of it. Because
Yeah.
to me, ultimately, that's a drama slash film noir.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, all that stuff looks stunning. I love the black and
Thank you.
white lighting, and it immediately struck me. And then I also really enjoy the more naturalistic color
Right, so
photography as well.
the trick was that we knew which parts of the film were going to be in black and white, which parts were going to be in color, and then we had to work on, okay, at what point does it transition?
Mm,
And I mean, narratively, it transitions at specific points, which is when the characters make a choice that will
yeah,
change their lives.
that's
Okay.
fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of visual effects, how do you go from the naturalistic kind of color, almost documentary style we
Mm,
wanted to the more kind of stylized black and white? And that had to honestly, it was working on two things. The first is it always whenever it switches in the shot, it's always in movement.
yes,
Means
yeah,
we could afford to move the lights as well as we went. And the other is what how whenever we do that, there's always an aspect of artificial lighting. Because on a little indie film, you're looking at a film that costs £35,000 to light outside. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I really love those moments where you have a change in their circumstance and it changes from black and white to
Yeah,
color or vice versa. Because also with the camera often moving around their back, it as well as the practical thing, it also adds some drama to it.
yeah.
And yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
But you're right. So you light slightly differently for black and white. So we had to start thinking about the contrast and how this was going to
Mm,
look once it turns into black and white. And so that came from, yeah, in script form, it was already there. We knew this shot needs to do this. How do we
yeah,
light it so that it will look okay in black and white?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it all
I'm
feels
glad you
very
noticed.
intentional. Yeah, in that way. Yes. Um, I'd like to focus in on just one shot that I was super
Uh-huh.
impressed by, which was the scene at the bar where you have this shot where Matt is framed on the right and he's in the foreground and he's sat on the bar, and then Abby enters the bar and she's sort of framed by a door with
Mhm.
the exit sign above, and she's sort of backlit, and then you use this kind of split diopter like
Yeah.
effect where they're both in focus, and I just found this shot really overwhelming and really great to look at, and I was just completely impressed by it. I was wondering two things. One, how long in advance did you have that kind of shot planned for? And two, is it a real split diopter lens or is there some digital trickery there?
Oh, okay, so first of all, let me tell you, it's so good to talk to somebody who knows the technical aspect of films because a lot of people, they come and talk to you, they have no idea how things are done. And the fact that you've identified a split diopter there is great, and the fact that you've identified the shot is great. In terms of how we achieved it, honestly, it was in the script. There's another one as well that we had in the film that I ended up cutting.
Oh,
Another
really?
diopter. In the same scene, essentially, when Mike is looking himself in the mirror,
Mm,
we had Abby walking in the background, and they were both in
yes.
focus. But the reason I cut that one is it didn't feel as relevant to the story.
Mm,
Whereas this one, in that one scene, it's the first time that she actually sees him in close up, and it feels like it's her mountain to climb. Essentially, that was the,
yeah.
the concept of the film. Now, in terms of how we pulled it off, it's actually a composite, so it's not a real split diopter. I think the beauty of digital is
Yeah.
that there's
Yeah.
stuff that you can do now where you don't need
Yeah.
uh, the same level of equipment as you would need if you were shooting on film. However, I would say it's still very kind of challenging to do. And the
Yeah.
reason is you have to know about the breathing room in your lens because there's quite a difference in distance between the two of them. So if you have too much breathing room in your lens, there's no way of disguising the cut because
Yeah.
essentially it's going to zoom slightly in or slightly out.
Mm,
So you can't disguise it. So the key to that was to know which lens we could use to pull it off, a lens that doesn't have too much breathing room, and then to find a place in the image where you could
Yeah,
place the joint of the image so it's not too obvious. And obviously, when you have a door frame, you've got a straight line there that you can hide
yeah.
your connection in. So yeah, thank you for noticing that.
No, that's great. I mean, I think the shot is just as effective, even if it's not a real split diopter, because I was really looking at it and I was thinking, if this is a split diopter lens, where is where is the join? But no, it's so effective, and I love
I
that.
mean, it's effective because it says something about the character
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
genre.
And yeah, yeah. No, that's terrific.
Thank you.
And so there's a scene quite quickly after that in the bathroom where they kind of have this confrontation, and a lot of it is through looks, and there's no speaking. They're just and you have this moment you hold on where they just sort of both stand there breathing, and the film holds on that. And that's probably my favorite moment in the film. And I was just wondering, on a level of directing performance, could you perhaps give us a little insight as to what kind of thing you said to the actors on that day of shooting to bring that much power out of their non-verbal performances?
Well, I think the thing about working with actor is you do the heavy lifting in the casting process.
Hmm.
There's no sense in trying to direct an actor that doesn't know how to do one thing into trying to do that one thing.
Yeah,
So we spent a lot of time casting them, which meant they were perfect for the characters. And in the case of Mike, the character was written for him. But in terms of what the direction that I gave them is that I wanted Mike to feel like he actually wanted him to do it.
yeah, yeah,
And on the other end of that, on the receiving end of that, I wanted her to want to do it, but feel like she would not be able to, she hadn't measured what it would take to kill someone.
yeah,
And so when we put them in that same room, and I think that was their first proper scene we shot the two of them together. And in fact, that's the only scene where they actually interact.
yeah,
Um, and so when we threw them in that, and Suzanne had the knife in the hand, and Mike, I think Mike worked himself up to that scene because he knew he had to communicate so much through just the body language and the
yeah,
positioning.
yeah.
Um, and that was about it, to be honest. I think we probably did what, three takes,
Really,
and then obviously you've got the composition that comes into the game. So the way that they're framed, and this kind of um, shooting the both of them, but at two different axes, essentially, so you can see
yeah,
their faces. It creates that kind of confrontation where they are at an even level in the frame, in a sense. They're each other's nemesis.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I think it's one of those scenes. I'm glad that you mentioned that it's your favorite moment, because we had in the initial previews that we gave people, we had a few notes of people saying, "Oh, maybe you could cut that scene," and I'm like, "Man,
What?
this is a
That's
key
like the
scene."
most. That's to me. That's the most significant moment in the
Yeah,
film.
I agree. In terms of the characters, first of all, it means everything.
Yeah,
It's the first time that they see each other since maybe we go back to that ellipsis thing, but since maybe the trial. Or
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and also it's the moment where Abigail realizes that, well, she projects her inability to kill onto a knife, and so she goes out to search for a gun. And
yeah.
if you don't have that scene, then you don't have that significant moment for her.
Oh, that is very interesting. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that's a great scene. Uh and as I say, you get some impeccable performances out of your
Hmm.
actors, and as you say, the casting is a huge part of that. I was also wondering, there are some wonderful little supporting performances, and some line deliveries feel in a good way quite sporadic and sort of off the cuff. And I was just wondering, how much leeway do you give your actors in terms of things like improvisation?
Loads of it.
Yeah.
I don't hold I understand filmmakers who hold the script sacred, and they're like, you cannot change a word out of this thing.
Mhm.
But I guess it depends on exactly what it is you're looking for. And for me, I'm always after, well, in this case anyway, I was after naturalistic performances. And so I actually clearly remember the scene between Abby and her uncle Henry. I came on set and I looked at the scene, and Nick looked at the scene, and we went, that's not going to work. And I
Mm,
ripped the pages. I said, look, we've got 2 days. What we do is today not going to film anything, but you guys are just going to you're just going to get very angry at each other, scream at each other, talk over each other, and
yeah,
we'll look at the scene. And once we've got it, we'll film it. Because, I said I'm a huge cinephile. I don't only love horror, I also love, Mike Lee and
yeah,
Gaspar
me too.
Noé and all of
Yeah,
these guys, where all of a
yeah,
sudden working on improvisation isn't. And I think it's scary to some people, but for me, as long as you get the meaning of the scene through, what
yeah.
the scene is for.
I really like that you mentioned Mike Lee because his process is very important to me. And that kind of improvisational sort of meeting the actor on their level,
Yeah.
and discussing character in that way, I think, yeah, definitely benefits the end product a
Well, I
lot.
think the problem is, an actor is an actor. Sure, they can act stuff, but also sometimes, it's all about that kind of energy that people give. You look at someone, they give a certain kind of energy, and if you
Yeah,
can play on that,
yeah,
then 90% of your job is done. But if you try to force something that they're not, that they don't
mm,
necessarily embody
mm,
onto them, that's when you get a kind of phony performance.
yeah. Um, right. So, am I right in saying that this film premiered at last year's Fright Fest?
Yes, you are.
So,
And
how was that experience, and what was the sort of audience response like?
that was great for me. If I'm honest, if I'm 100% honest, when I was told Fright Fest wanted it for a world premiere, I was like, huh? I didn't really understand why a horror festival would want this film.
Right. Yes.
Um, but yeah, it was great. We had a great time. I think we had some really, you know, you never get 100% positive, but 90% of it was positive. We even had some, and I think that's where we realized that the film was very bleak. I said to another journalist earlier, I don't think I'd realized how bleak the film was until we
Mm,
started showing it. Even when we made it, we had such a good time. I don't
yeah.
think I'd realized. And we had some people come out of that Fright Fest showing, saying, yeah, I've seen a lot of horror. Great film, Jonathan, but I don't think I'll ever want to watch it again.
No.
So it's
Yes. Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So how long's the film been completed now? For like a year and a half?
Yeah, good year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good
now
year.
looking back on it, whenever you think of it or if you watch it, what does it sort of mean to you now? What does the film represent sort of in your creative life, in your career?
I mean, it's hard to tell. We've just only released it. I know it took a long time. We didn't want to rush the release of this film. We rushed the release of a film in the past and we regretted it bitterly.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't want to rush this. What's it going to do for me? I don't know. I would like to think, looking at the conversation that surrounds it now, that we've at least broken into the mainstream now,
Hmm.
which is a huge step. It's a
Yeah.
massive step to
Yeah.
take, and I'm proud of the film. I don't watch it because I don't tend to watch my work unless I have to be at a festival or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I love the reactions we're getting. Um, Time will tell, I guess. I don't really know about that.
Right. But you're proud of it?
Oh, I'm very proud of it. I think we've managed to, I'm a, I, people who know me know I'm a complicated person. I'm quite grumpy most of the time, and but in terms of this film, I objectively we've had some great performances.
Yeah.
It's a film that doesn't look and or sound its budget. I mean, I don't know which version you've seen, but we even have a 5.1 surround sound
Hmm.
mix for a
Wow.
35 grand film. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's a film that dares things. It's a film that is true to itself. And we've worked endlessly with the writers, with the actors, with everybody, so that there would be no transgression to what we wanted the film to actually achieve.
Yeah.
Whether we achieve that, that's actually not up to me. That's up to you. That's up to people who watch it.
All right. Well, fabulous. Well, thank you very, very much for
Oh,
this.
thank you. That was great. That was
That was
amazing.
great. Should I say so it's now on digital from Miracle Media and it gets its Blu-ray release from 101 Films on the 22nd of September.
Absolutely. And there's a full feature film, an hour 47 minutes of behind the scene,
Oh wow.
which I am not a part of. I decided to step away from it to
Yes.
let the cast and the crew speak. And I think that it might shock people to see how much fun we've had making this very bleak film.
Okay, I see. Anyway, well, great talking to you. Thank you
Great
very
talking
much
to
for
you.
joining me.
Thank you.